as a cluster. Yeah? We have the technology, we have mobile internet, we have soon Galileo, or at the moment GPS, and we can use these technologies to deliver services, yeah, and to support business and job creation. And in the future, there's even more to come. Yeah? The European Union has just recently given the accord to the Copernicus program. This is a program of about 6 satellites starting in probably next year. They won't be able to do it, the first launch in this year probably. It's about 6 satellites surveying the Earth in different spectra. This is radar spectra, this is infrared, this is optical spectrum. And with the help of these data, you again can use them free. You can, again, offer services, yeah? Like my wish is always, to which skiing lift should I go, yeah? Is there a long queue or a long crowd behind the skiing lift? And somehow then you can look more or less on your mobile phone, yeah, and see if there is a queue, yeah? I think this is fantastic, yeah? If you can do something like this in the future. And so this is when I'm now going down to the very subject of tourism. I think the most important for a tourist is a map. It all starts with a map. And I think this is where also the state and the public support comes in. In a way, you as a state or as a public entity, you can support getting accurate maps for your region. And a tourist needs accurate maps, yeah? Especially in the mountains. When you step a few steps aside, well, and you fall down, yeah? That's it, yeah? So there is some field for public support there. And once you have a map, you can more or less do the rest, yeah? You can just locate the services and you can make it available. First, you should make it available on the internet, and second, you should make it available on a smartphone, yeah? It's a different format. You have to get used that you show your okay. You have to get used that you show your content in a different way when it should be suitable for a smartphone. Yeah, this is a learning process, but it can be done. And so when I look now on Google, on the Google Play Store, yeah, because I'm a physicist, so I'm try to play around with my operating system. Yeah, so I'm not an Apple fan, so I don't have any view into the Apple store. I'm just on the Google side. When I look on Google Maps. Since the beginning, there have been 500 million downloads of Google Maps. This is, for me, this is an incredible number, yeah? 500 million. Yeah? And even when you look at the latest update from 9 October, we are talking of 2.8 million downloads, yeah? Crazy number. So when I now look at tourism in Bavaria, well, the most touristic region is probably Upper Bavaria, but still, when I look through into Google Play Store, it's about the order of 100, yeah? 100 apps, a few hundred, yeah? But it's not 1,000, yeah? It's in the hundreds, yeah? And when you know, when you look at the download numbers, yeah, well, this depends. Either you look at apps for a specific city, you can also look at apps for hiking or for skiing, or there are some brand names who go to an app programmer and tells him, please make an app for our skiing equipment, yeah, and put a nice story around, then this is a kind of advertisement for us, yeah. And all the numbers we find is around the 10,000, yeah. So if an app is really good, it's 10,000 plus, so we are not talking of...
1,000 a day or 10,000 a day?
Or no, all in all, this is the sum of downloads, yeah. This is the sum of downloads, yeah. And like with the 500 million, this is the sum of all the downloads so far, yeah? And so 10,000, okay, maybe it's 50,000, maybe it's 80,000. Yeah, the category, I think, goes from 10,000 to 100,000. They only tell you 10,000 plus, yeah? So I assume, yeah, it's about the same number in the iPhone store. Maybe it's a bit more, yeah, in the iStore. But what we learn, of course, you don't get really rich by the downloads, yeah? In this tourism sector, yeah. But of course, what's interesting is that when you look at the rates of sold fixed desktop computers, yeah, this went down by 15% over the last 2 years. So equivalently, the number of mobile smartphones and tablets went up more than this, yeah? And people are more and more using also these mobile devices for booking tours, booking the holidays, and so on, yeah? So it's used, yeah? And let's see, was there another message I had? Well, I think another message I found out was what we maybe haven't thought so much when we look at apps. There are a lot of people like from Japan, from Russia, from the Arabic countries, and I spend a lot of my time in Garmisch-Partenkirchen. Yeah? You might know it from the ski jump, yeah? Every beginning of the year. And all these people, they cannot read our alphabet, yeah? And they cannot understand our language and our signs. Yeah? So I see this as a big potential. Yeah? When somebody from China comes in and has all the information he or she needs on the tablet, yeah? And they all of a sudden can read everything, what's important. Yeah? And I see this because more and more tourists come from China and Russia, yeah? and they don't have this understanding of our language and even of our alphabets. Yeah? So I see also some trend going here, and this is also again this transnational view. Yeah? I like it. Yeah? This makes borders more permeable.
Transborder, yes.
Yeah, transborder. Yeah? And well, at the end, I think we have to support this dialogue between the technology guys and the tourism guys. Because there is a wealth of technologies available, and at the moment what happens is we bombard the technologists. Yeah? Well, since I feel a bit more on the technology side. Yeah? Our member companies are mostly on the technology side. And so what we are as a cluster trying to bridge is this dialogue between the tourism agencies and the technologies. A lot can be done with technology, but most of it is technology push. Yeah, and what we have to listen to careful is to the tourism agencies and to the tourists, what she or he wants. Yeah? And this dialogue, yeah, between the tourism agencies and the tourists and the tourism agencies and the technologists, yeah, this is what's becoming more important. We have now 5 or probably 10 when you take all these mobile operating systems. We have 10 different operating systems almost around. Yeah? This is crazy. Yeah? So you have to think about the updates of all of this, yeah? And the tourism agency have to decide for this technology or that technology, and 2 years later it's over, yeah? Fortunately, now we have a nice hardware which is a kind of stable, yeah? When you say Android or when you say iPhone today, yeah? We didn't have this 5 years ago, yeah? There were special devices for city tours, yeah? And you had to rent them, or you bought them, and now you can throw them away. That's it, yeah? So now we are in this happy status, yeah, that we have some kind of relatively stable base for hardware, and to replace and update software. This is easier, yeah? But still we need this dialogue, yeah? And so what we are doing, we are having some so-called user forum where we match those two interests, tourism agencies and technology interests. And this year, we are happy, then we can also support this with the help of Cultways money. We are having a big event, well, like this one, in Augsburg on the 13th of November, where we make one day around the mobile tourist, we call it, yeah. And we can just encourage you, go out, talk with the tourism agencies and with the technology guys and bring them into contact.
Thank you, Jürgen. Thank you very much indeed for your measurements in range of radar, optic, ultraviolet, and this will probably provide the ground for new companies to start based on the development and the exploitation of this data. And it's free. And it's free. Yeah. That's very important. That will be 2014. So this is the first information received, and it was very interesting. The other point, which is also very relevant, which was raised by Jürgen, was the experience in Bavaria, showing that the most successful cases of startups developing applications, they reach a level of 10,000 downloads. Probably this number will normally increase, time passing by. And what Jürgen said also was that one of the major success factors for these companies is the fact that they have a media company coaching them. And it would be interesting to know from you, on one hand, what is the role of the media company in the startup and the take-up of the operations? And there will be a second round for you later on. And also the self-sustainability of the business model. How are these startups making money, and how? This is also interesting. The last point raised by Jürgens was also very important. He said a dialogue between the tourism agencies and the tourists as being an active actor in this process is very important. We don't only need the solid technology. We need the solid dialogue between the technology providers and the recipients of the technology. Solidity has to do with a co-generation of content, of co-production of content between these two parts. It is also probably a very interesting hint provided by Jürgen. Last presentation will be done by Alan Mayer. Alan Mayer is a policymaker, is head of service policy unit, and from his view, he works in the Department for Business Innovation and Skills in UK. Probably we'll learn a lot on what's happening in UK, and I know that he's going to present us a number of concrete cases and examples on how things are taking place in UK. Please, Alan.
Thank you, Aleardo. Perhaps we can show the slides. As I said, I'm a civil servant from the Department for Business. Delighted to be here. I also chaired an expert panel on behalf of the EU Commission on service innovation, and it was several years ago. I was in the Val d'Aosta, and I first heard of Cultways, and the first time I heard of the Roman Limas. It was a most informative conference. I also saw for the first time, I'd heard of the Camino, but it was the first time I'd seen it, and by coincidence this summer my daughter went on the Camino with her university friends, taking the English route. The English route is the easy route from Ferrol. It's not so far, but it was a fantastic experience and recommend it to anybody. But I'm not here to talk about really the Camino. I'm here to talk about mobile technologies and cultural tourism and give you a UK perspective. And I think my first point is that really this is tourism in Britain is a tale of two industries. One is, if you take the figures according to the nights spent in millions, and this is taken from the EU Commission's regional statistics, you can see between 2007 and 2011, the way tourism in Britain has declined. But you can also see just the absolute numbers by region. So if we're talking about the Roman Limas, you're looking at Northumberland and you're looking at Cumbria, the top two elements of the slide, and you can see the millions staying there, not just for the Roman Limas, I should say. Cumbria is our lake district, mountains and lakes, so many of us go there, and I'll be going there next week, not to go to Hadrian's Wall, to go for something different, but it's rural tourism. North York's Moors is similar. Dorset and Somerset, Cornwall and the Scilly Isles, Devon, is in the south of England. For any, if you know England, that's more sailing and the beaches. The Highlands and Islands of Scotland are highly rural. Northern Ireland, a small tourist centre. West Wales, you can see. But the real distinction I make is between these individual elements and then you see inner London, where the figure is nearly 50 million nights of external people staying, typically on business, but staying on and wanting some sort of cultural activity while they're there on business. There's a huge difference in the numbers and quite clearly a huge difference in scale. But it's a tale of two industries in another sense, and that is, as we're talking about mobile technologies, the 3G mobile coverage. And so if you are doing the Roman Limes on Hadrian's Wall, you can see that you can get no reliable signal on 3G in Northumberland for 30% of the geographic coverage. And because coverage is by different operators, might be Virgin, Vodafone, BT, in Northumberland, only 6% of the region is covered by all the operators. So the chances are that you won't get a signal at all. And that 6%, I suspect, in Northumberland is in the towns or the cities. Cumbria, 19%, where there is no reliable signal. That's, I say, it's mountains and lakes. And only 8% of all operators providing. And then you can see the similar figures for the other regions. But then you come to London, and it's got a fully reliable signal, and all the operators are providing. And that's why when I go around London now, I see people, I bump into people as they're looking at their mobile phones and their iPads and pointing them at buildings and the like. So for me, technology is interesting, but infrastructure, modern mobile broadband infrastructure, absolutely critical to enable you guys at the back to make your stuff work. As a result of that, you go to London and there is any number of apps catering for all types of tourist, travel, or whatever. You can go on to what we call in London Boris Bikes, the mayor's bikes, where are they located, and all the information about the bikes. There's the top one. I'm not going to go into it because of time. You've got everything to do as a traveller in London. The inclusive London is if you're disabled, all the restaurants, hotels, all the facilities you need if you find it difficult to get around, which tube stations have lifts, etc. If you're a student in London, the top 10 mobile apps for international students, and the last one, the 10 apps you need to download on day one in London. There are thousands of these damn apps. You can't escape them. But they're fabulous. They meet every single need you can imagine. And that's just a typical example on a mobile phone at the Tower of London. But if you're on Hadrian's Wall, yes, there is an app for the Limes. And if you're in Penrith, I suspect you'll get a signal. But if you're actually on the walk, not so easy, as I mentioned before. But there is all the stuff that you would expect, standard information around things to see, the various restaurants, cafes, whatever it is around the area that you're in, the transport that you need, etc., etc. But as I say, whereas in London, wherever you are, you can access here up on Hadrian's Wall, you may as well be a legionnaire for all the information you're getting from your mobile app. It won't be there. The Aquaisulis, as we Latin speakers call it, in Bath, in the south of England, there is an app where you can walk through the Roman baths, these huge Roman baths, and so not a problem at all there. But that's typical of the sort of information now tourists can reasonably expect if they travel to a cultural centre. Oops. And this is an interesting case, which I'll speak more about later. But the Isle of Wight is right in the south of England, off Portsmouth and Southampton. It originally became a tourist centre because Queen Victoria retired to the Isle of Wight when her husband, Prince Albert, died prematurely. She retired to Osborne House. And so the Isle of Wight suddenly became fashionable to Victorians. If it was good enough for the Queen, it was good enough for them, and they flocked to the Isle of Wight. And the early traditional tourism really started up on the Isle of Wight. It didn't change for 100 years. We're talking culture on the Isle of Wight, you go back 40 years. This is not the wine and food of Italy. This is beer and fish and chips. Make no mistake. although it's changing, and international sailing has brought high-quality fish, not the chips, to this island. But interestingly, it is also a huge centre of fossils, the Jurassic Age, because the cliffs in the south have revealed the fossils from the dinosaur age. And as I will show in the second part of our discussion, just what the island is doing to make this a more entertaining and attractive centre. But what is government doing around this? And first and foremost, as I indicated earlier, it's actually to try to get its 4G strategy up and running and active. And there's been a lot of criticism from our from the Houses of Parliament, the committees, about how late the UK has been compared with Germany, Spain and other countries in delivering 4G, because it's 4G which gives you a better signal, a more reliable signal than 3G. And there the commitment to roll out 4G to all regions of Britain, not just to towns and cities, but to all regions of Britain, a high proportion, 98% I think it is by 2015. And I can tell you, I was with the Minister last week, and he is already talking about the need for the UK to lead on 5G, saying we were late on 4G, we must not be late on 5G, and he's pushing the idea of 5G, which won't be until 2020, but the research is in place, and already there are serious discussions about how we, almost like the Chinese, leapfrog 4G to get into 5G quicker than anybody else. But the other critical thing besides infrastructure is the technologies, and there are two research programs which have been developed first by the Research Council for the Arts and Humanities, working with Nesta. Nesta is the National Endowment for Science and Technology in the Arts based in London, highly creative think tank around digital innovation in particular. And there are some, it's a small £500,000 pilot program where there are a number of interesting pilot projects taking place, around 10. The first is around a pure culture app, but other pilots, other projects have been around the social interaction. So you go to a museum, what does that mean to you, and how do you engage with the artifacts? How do you engage with what the museum is telling you? What can you play back into that? And the student pulse, which I'll come on to shortly. And a second one is around what's called destination local. It's really about hyper-local, really focused down on communities, which it doesn't have a tourist application when it's so focused. For example, there are programs around for Welsh speakers in the north of Wales. Well, I don't speak Welsh, and I'm sure you don't speak Welsh, so it's not of interest to you as a tourist. But there is one particular one which I think could be of interest to tourism, which is relevant. And what I'd like to do, if it's possible, is show you this one, which relates to Dickens and Dickens London. This pilot was the Culture app, where they've sought to give a richer experience and build on Dickens London for the tourist, and hopefully the broadband, the mobile broadband here, this Wi-Fi hotspot is working. It won't take long to boot up, I trust. And I'm sure the technician in the background here is doing all he can to get this app up and running, and here it goes. I hope the volume is okay for the interpreters.
Imagine a cultural experience that spans a city, with a guide that fits in your pocket.
Dickens London Trails is a free iPhone app which basically leads audiences on a journey across Dickensian London. Essentially, you pick a character from a Dickens novel who represents a certain type of idea or theme.
The themes include crime and punishment, femininity, childhood and poverty. We found individual characters from Dickens' work that represented each of the themes. And then you can walk around London and find relevant locations that meet the theme from a range of novels.
Of course, such guided tours are nothing new.
Dickens' trails have been under development ever since Dickens' time. People, his readers, have actually visited places that Dickens wrote about, that influenced him. So it's an idea that's 140, 150 years old. Technology has given us an opportunity to do this without a guidebook, without an actual guide, for people to take their phone and walk around the city in the footsteps of Charles Dickens.
And it's Dickens' characters that add flavour to each of the trails.
Abel Magwitch, the character from Great Expectations, leads audiences on a trail around the themes of crime and punishment, whereas the Artful Dodger from Dickens's great novel Oliver Twist leads you on a journey around childhood, poverty and power. There's a trail that you can take about women in Dickensian London, so if you're female or if you have an interest in women and women's studies, that will be of interest to you.
As a user, you can decide, I want to follow Magwitch, I want to follow the Artful Dodger, or I can just say, right, here I am, just outside Coram Field, what in this area has Dickens connections? And you can just go on the app and say, right, okay, I'm going to go to this pub that Dickens dined in or drank in back in 1859. Or you can go to Great Ormond Street Hospital.
Now trying to escape from this, back to my... So that was one of the pilots that that Nesta and the Arts Council funded, was how to create a richer experience on the back of Dickens' novels. How successful it has been was one of the questions, and that's still, as it's a pilot, they're still working out what are the numbers, using it, trying to get feedback from people who have used it, because that's all part of the learning process. What is it that the customer wants? What is it that the tourist wants? And is this really providing the information in a way that is not just convenient, but one which adds real value to that Dickens walk around London? I should say that I recommend the Cheshire Cheese pub, which you may have seen there, off Fleet Street. And when I go to the Cheshire Cheese, you see tourists using that particular app. But I mentioned other ones. On the left-hand side, the lady with the mobile phone is in the Imperial War Museum, where what was the impact of the war on local communities, and she can engage and interact. So this is crowdsourcing, intelligent crowdsourcing in a museum. And again, this is a piece of research being funded to try to understand how can we make our museums much more interesting for the tourist. And the one on the right is it's really how to, in this particular case, was how to encourage more young people, more students to attend classical music concerts. And so they were using apps offering free tickets on a mobile phone to get them to come to a classical concert. And I gather that was successful. And what it found as part of this experiment was how the whole culture of the organisation had to change. It wasn't just the student engaging with his mobile phone. They do that easily and can get the free ticket. What was really interesting was how the front desk at the opera house or the concert theatre had to change its whole mechanisms to be able to accommodate that, and then enable students to come in, use the mobile app and enjoy the concert. So this is as what's happening in real time. And just the final slide was, I mentioned Destination Local, the hyperlocal. This was around, this is the city of Leeds, where there's a whole load of crowdsourcing going on, particularly amongst young people. This is young people's stuff, typically under 35, where they're, and this is of relevance to young tourists in Leeds, where you can see where, if you like, the young people of Leeds, which pubs, which restaurants, what's on, what's hot, what music. And this is real-time engagement, real crowdsourcing of information for the tourist. So that's where we are at the moment, and I'll pass across to the chair to take us through to the next phase. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel. It was very interesting and stimulating presentation. I think you love challenges, Alan. Trying to sell English food to Italians is quite it's quite hard job, I believe, but you've been doing quite well, and we appreciated it. I always appreciated English food when I was in England, but I think it's always...
They say the Italian restaurants in London are better than the ones...
You see, he's a salesman. Thank you very much for that. And I think your presentation was very inspiring. And the challenges, of course, are there from the technological and business model standpoint. I have only a curiosity. Probably will be time now for some questions from the audience. They will have a very short conclusion from each of us on the future challenges. And I know you have also a couple of slides on that.